Chosen one, stop everything. What you have lived through was never random. It was a coordinated, deliberate strike from an organized darkness that most never encounter. But the opposition's overreach triggered a divine intervention. You must understand that an otherworldly force had to step in on your behalf. They were killing people. The entity took over, and the evil that sought your destruction has been met with a power it cannot comprehend. You felt it long before you had words for it. Even from childhood, there was a quiet awareness that you were not moving through the world the way everyone around you seemed to move through it. Something was written on you that you could not read yourself, but the wrong kinds of people could see it perfectly. You sensed that certain people were drawn to you in a way that felt less like connection and more like surveillance. Something in them recognized something in you and needed to get close to it, not to celebrate it, but to control it. You probably told yourself you were imagining it. The world around you had no category for what you were picking up, so you learned to compress the signal. You learned to trust less and to keep your knowing private. You were not imagining it. From the very beginning of your life, forces aligned with darkness had already identified what you were carrying. They did not come for you because you were weak or unprotected or easy to reach. They came for you because of the exact opposite. What was placed inside you before you ever drew your first breath, that power, that assignment, that irreplaceable quality of light, was a direct threat to every system of darkness that had been running quietly in the lives of the people positioned around you. Your light was a problem before you even knew you possessed it. So the groundwork started early. People appeared in your life wearing the face of love, but operating like a slow drain. Relationships with family members, with partners, with close circles, carried an internal exhaustion no matter how much you invested in them. The more you gave, the less you had. Your confidence shrank. Your voice went quieter. The most powerful parts of who you are began going underground, not because you chose that, but because the environment around you had been engineered to make expressing your full self feel unsafe. You thought that was just life being hard. You thought the difficulty was normal. It was not normal. It was preparation. The forces working against your destiny were laying groundwork long before the direct assault came, because a direct assault requires a weakened target, and you were never going to be easy to weaken. What you experienced in those early seasons was not failure on your part. It was the opening phase of a campaign that had you at its center before you even understood there was a war. The moment you began shifting, the moment you started waking up, questioning, moving differently, and pulling away from arrangements that needed you to stay small and stay asleep, an alarm went off somewhere, and the people who heard that alarm started organizing. Understand something critical about who assembled against you. The force driving this was not simple jealousy. Jealousy is human and messy, and it loses focus over time. What was directed at you had a cold, sustained organizational quality that no ordinary human grudge can maintain indefinitely. This was threat assessment. The calculation from the people at the center of this operation was precise. You, fully awakened and fully empowered, represented a problem they could not afford to let develop. So a plan was built, layered, multi-directional, and designed with your elimination as the only acceptable outcome. On the social level, your reputation became a target, your relationships became a target. The goal was your isolation, getting the people around you confused about who you were, compromising your closest connections, making sure that when the hardest moments came, you would not have a solid, clear-eyed foundation to stand on. On the material level, your stability became a target. Every time an opportunity was close to coming through for you, something moved it, just out of reach. Every time you were building toward the kind of independence that would have made you untouchable to their influence, something disrupted the build. On the spiritual level, your connection to your own power became a target. Things were done deliberately and intentionally, in the dark, designed to bind your energy and create interference between you and the divine knowing that was your greatest asset and their greatest threat. The intent was to keep you operating at a fraction of your actual capacity, foggy when you should have been clear, doubting when you should have been certain, and disconnected when you should have felt the full force of what backs your life. You carried the weight of all three levels pressing on you simultaneously. For an entire season, you were exhausted in a way that had no simple name. This was not the tiredness that comes from working hard. This was soul fatigue, the kind of depletion that settles into a person who has been in a war they cannot fully see, fighting on dimensions they were not yet trained to recognize. That exhaustion was not your failure. It was the plan doing exactly what it was designed to do. The very force they were pressing on, that quality of power and light and divine assignment living inside you, does not weaken under pressure. It activates, like metal that only becomes what it is meant to be through sustained heat. Every attack designed to break you was at a level they could not see, building something in you, something more refined, something sharper, something that was going to be far more dangerous to their operation than you would have been if they had simply left you alone. Without knowing it, the people assembled against you were sharpening the very thing they were afraid of. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. When the attacks did not produce the outcome they expected, when you kept surviving, kept moving, and kept carrying your assignment, despite everything thrown at you, the people running this operation made a decision that permanently changed the nature of the conflict. They escalated, and for people operating at that level of darkness, escalation does not mean trying harder at the same approaches. It means going deeper. It means going to sources of power that most human beings would never willingly approach. It means trading your own conscience, your own humanity, and your own clarity, piece by piece, for access to forces that operate below the floor of what ordinary people can see or name. There was an entity involved. That is not a poetic phrase. That is a literal description of something real. The darkness that came against you was not purely human in its origin or its direction. The people involved were human. They made choices and they bear responsibility for those choices. But what organized their aggression, sustained its focus, and gave it a coherence that no ordinary human grievance could maintain over a long period, that came from something else. An ancient, non-human intelligence with one core function: identify the people carrying genuine light, find the ones with real divine assignments, and eliminate them before they arrive at their full power. This entity moved through people who had opened themselves to it. These were people who went looking for shortcuts, for wealth, for influence, for a version of power they were not willing to earn through honest means, and found something very willing to make a trade. The entity delivered what they asked for in exchange for residence inside them. It settled in, and from that position it directed their focus, their plans, and their obsessive drive toward you specifically. This is why what was aimed at you never made proportional sense. The level of sustained, organized aggression directed at your life was never really about any human conflict between you and these individuals. It was about what you carry and what the entity understood you represented, a force of light that at full power would be a direct and permanent threat to everything the entity had been building through the people it controlled. In pushing harder and harder against a target that kept not falling, in crossing thresholds that the governance of this realm does not permit, it triggered a response from a level entirely above its own. The outworldly force was activated, and it was not coming to observe. It was not coming to counsel, it was coming to intervene. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet. Videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine, and when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the dark elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your destiny engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. There was a specific moment. You already know which one it is, and it may be surfacing in your memory right now. This was the moment where everything that had been building against you reached its execution point, where the slow groundwork and sustained erosion became something acute, something moving fast and moving directly toward an ending that was designed to be permanent. Maybe it took a physical form. A situation that should have ended in your death did not end that way. There was an accident, a confrontation, or an event with no logical explanation for your survival. Maybe it took a medical form. Something entered your body and should have progressed the way those things progress, and somehow it did not. Maybe something was introduced into what you consumed, and your body, or something protecting your body, rejected what was meant to bring you down. Maybe the moment came quietly, a night so dark that every direction looked like a wall, and then something shifted. A word reached you from an unlikely source. A presence moved through the space around you that did not belong to you alone. A certainty settled over you from outside yourself, a knowing that you were going to be okay, that had absolutely nothing to do with the evidence in front of you. The evidence was saying the opposite, and yet the certainty was there, unmovable, coming from somewhere beyond your own mind. That certainty was not your brain manufacturing comfort in a moment of stress. That was direct communication. That was the outworldly force telling you, through a channel that bypasses language and lands directly in the center of your knowing, that it had arrived. You were held. The outcome had already been secured at a level your physical eyes had not yet caught up to. The entity on the other side of this felt that shift happen. When a force of that magnitude inserts itself between a target and what is coming for that target, the spiritual atmosphere changes in a way that everything operating in that atmosphere can sense. The entity recognized the level of what had arrived. It calculated the distance between its own capacity and the capacity of what was now standing in the way. The campaign was over, not stalled over. You had just been elevated to a level of divine protection that was entirely beyond the entity's reach, and every resource it had invested through the people it was using had just been redirected back toward the source. When the outworldly force steps in on behalf of a chosen one, it does not simply block the attack. It reverses the entire field. The energy that was aimed at you did not dissipate. It turned around and went home. Think of what happened on the other side of your survival. Think of the people who built and executed this plan, and picture the certainty they walked in with, the cold, settled, organizational confidence of people who had done this before and watched it work. They had already started moving past you in their minds and calculating what came next. They were not anxious. They were not second-guessing themselves. The outcome, based on everything they had invested and everything they understood about how power works, was already decided. And then you walked out. Still breathing, still here, still carrying the very thing they had spent so much organized effort trying to extinguish. What landed on them in that moment was not ordinary disappointment. When an entire model of how the world works produces the wrong answer, when reality delivers the exact opposite of what every resource deployed was designed to produce, it does not just mean the plan failed. It means the foundation the plan was built on is wrong. The whole framework cracks. Your survival was not just a setback for them, it was a demolition of the belief system that had made them feel powerful in the first place. And every time you showed up after that, every time you rose a little higher, and your light pushed a little further into the world, the demolition continued. Your continued existence became a standing statement that something was backing you, which operated at a level they could not reach, touch, or understand. You became the thing they feared most, not because you pursued them, but simply because you refused to disappear. When it could not complete the mission it had organized so many people to carry out, it did not gracefully stand down. It turned on its own instruments. The same relentless, obsessive, driving force it had used to push people toward you was redirected inward. It began consuming from the inside the very people it had used. The human cost of being pushed past what you can sustain by a force that does not care about your well-being became visible. The people who came against you started fracturing. Plans began unraveling. The cold certainty they once carried gave way to something desperate and unstable. That is what darkness does when it cannot have what it wanted. It devours what it had. You were never the prey in any of this. You were always the threat. The entire operation assembled against you. Everything that was organized, resourced, spiritually fueled, and relentlessly directed at your life was not the strong coming for the weak. It was the desperate coming for something they could not control and could not afford to let reach full power. Every scheme, every attack, and every season of assault was, at its root, an act of fear. Not an act of power, an act of fear. The fear of something ancient and dark that looked at what you carry and understood that you, fully awake and fully standing in your assignment, represent a force it cannot withstand. You were the dominant force in this situation the entire time. You just had not been told yet. A person who understands what they are does not move through the world the same way. You are not a multi-dimensional being in a poetic sense. You are that literally. You operate on levels of reality that most people never consciously access in a lifetime. You feel the truth of a situation before your mind has words for it. You know things you have no ordinary means of knowing. You sense what is real beneath what is performed, and the accuracy of that sensing used to unsettle you because it made pretending difficult. Stop treating that as a quirk. That is your equipment. That is the faculty you were given because your assignment requires it. What you came here to do is specific, not vague or general. You carry a specific role in what is unfolding right now. You have a calling to pour something into the world through your presence, your truth, your love, your leadership, your creativity, your healing, whatever your particular expression is, that the world cannot receive any other way, because no one else carries it in the exact form you carry it. The divine intelligence that sent you here knew precisely what it was doing, and the darkness that assembled against you knew what you were carrying before you fully knew it yourself. That is why the opposition started before your awareness did. This was never about punishing you. It was always about stopping what you represent. It failed, and the full knowing of that failure belongs to you now. Walk in it. The intent behind every layer of the attack was reduction, to keep you operating at a fraction of your actual capacity, to keep you confused, to keep you doubting, and to keep the channel between your conscious self and your divine knowing full of static and interference. But something went wrong with that design at the deepest level. What you carry is not a separate component that can be targeted and damaged while the rest of you stays intact. It is integrated into who you are. It runs through every layer of your being, and when sustained pressure is applied to that kind of person, someone whose assignment, identity, and spiritual nature are one unified thing, the design does not weaken, it activates. Under sustained pressure, something that had been dormant in you woke up. Capacities that might have taken much longer to develop on a smooth and uncontested path came online faster because the situation demanded it. Your discernment sharpened because it had to. Your ability to see beneath surface presentations deepened because you encountered too many surfaces that were hiding something dangerous. Your connection to divine protection became not a belief you held intellectually, but a fact you had personally and physically tested and confirmed. The sensitivity the opposition tried to exploit as a vulnerability became your most powerful asset. The knowing they tried to interfere with became clearer and more precise than it had ever been before. They applied pressure to it. The love you carry, which was always the core of your assignment, became something rooted in real, lived, tested experience, rather than something untried and idealistic. They intended to hollow you out. What they produced instead was a version of you with more density, more depth, and more unshakable spiritual authority than you would have possessed without the fire. You are more dangerous to darkness now than you were before the campaign against you started. They built that. They created the very force that is dismantling them. Divine justice does not announce itself. It does not give the people it is moving toward the opportunity to prepare a defense. It does not rush or delay according to anyone's preference. It moves with the quiet, methodical, absolute precision of something that operates outside of urgency because it is not capable of missing its mark. And right now, it is moving. The person who sat at the center of what was assembled against you, the one with the position, the title, and the respectable public face that was covering something entirely different in private, is living inside the beginning of a fall that is going to be total. The structures built on what was done to you are cracking from the foundation upward. The alliances that provided cover are discovering reasons to create distance. The people who were recruited into the operation are fracturing away from each other because the entity that organized them never cared about protecting them, and when their usefulness expired, it left them exposed. Someone already talked. Someone is already cooperating with the light that is coming for what was done in the dark. Because when the force operating through people turns on those people, loyalty disappears, self-preservation takes over, and one person telling the truth is all it takes for the rest of the architecture to become visible. What was done to you in the dark is finding its way into the light, not because you engineered that, and not because you pursued retaliation. It is happening because the same outworldly force that stepped in to protect your life is handling the response with a thoroughness that no human strategy could match. The accountability coming for the people who ran this operation is not punitive in the way human punishment is punitive. It is structural. It is the universe correcting an imbalance, the way a scale that has been artificially weighted on one side returns to level the moment the artificial weight is removed. Your job is not to watch that process. Your job is to turn your face forward and keep walking. The reckoning behind you is already underway. What is ahead of you is where your energy belongs. Surviving is not the destination. Surviving is the prerequisite. Surviving was what you did while you were still in the process of understanding what you are and what has been backing your life. Now you have that understanding, and what you do with understanding is not hunch down and stay safe and quietly be grateful that the worst did not happen. What you do with understanding is stand all the way up. You stop calibrating your light based on who it might disturb. You stop compressing your voice based on who it might unsettle. You stop making yourself smaller to accommodate spaces that were never designed to hold the full dimension of who you are. Those spaces were shaped by people and systems that needed you to stay small. You are not obligated to maintain the shape of a room that was built around your diminishment. Full authority looks like moving through the world with the settled, unshakable confidence of someone who has already faced the worst thing the opposition could assemble and emerged, not just intact but sharpened, deepened and backed by something that nothing the enemy carries can defeat. Full authority does not look like performed confidence. It does not look like arrogance. It looks like a person who has been personally tested at the highest level and has the lived embodied knowledge that the protection on their life is real. That knowledge lives in your bones now. You are not working from hope anymore. You are working from proof. You have personally survived what should not have been survivable. You have personally experienced an outworldly force intervening in the circumstances of your life. You have personally watched the things assembled against you begin to fall apart under the weight of their own darkness. Walk like what you know, not like what you feared, but like what you know. Your assignment is not in the past. Your purpose did not peak in the chapter of surviving the attack. That chapter was the foundation, the work you are here to do, the love you are here to pour out, and the truth you are here to carry into the world. All of that is ahead of you, and you are walking toward it now with every resource that was forged in you through the fire you walked through. You put down the weight of not understanding why. That weight is finished. You know why your life has felt like a battle. You know why the opposition has been as organized, as sustained, and as disproportionate as it has been. You know why the protection on your life has operated at the level it has. You have the full picture now, and having the full picture means releasing the self-blame, releasing the confusion, and releasing the years of searching for what you must have done wrong. Nothing you did brought this on. You were targeted because of what is right about you. Let that truth replace every story you have been carrying about being the problem. You reclaim everything you put underground, the gifts you stopped expressing because the attention they drew felt dangerous, the dreams you folded away because sustaining them openly was costing you too much, the voice you made quieter to reduce the friction. All of it comes back now, because the sustained operation that was designed to keep you small and contained is in its death spiral. You are walking into a season where small is not the assignment and quiet is not the requirement. You walk in the authority of what has been proven on your behalf, not theory, not something you are hoping is true, but proof. The protection on your life is not something you have to believe in from a distance anymore. It is something you have personally witnessed activate. When the situation required intervention arrived. You have living evidence of this. Let that evidence be the ground you stand on when anything going forward tries to shake you, and you stay awake. Staying awake means you do not return to the comfortable confusion of before. It means you recognize the patterns now. You see the moves when they are being made. You understand what the opposition is, how it operates, and what it wants. That understanding, combined with the spiritual authority built in you through everything you survived, makes you a fundamentally different force than the one they thought they were dealing with at the start of all this. Nothing unsettles a person who has already lived through the worst version of what they were once afraid of. You are that person now, unrattled, rooted, and moving with the quiet, unmistakable power of someone who has been tested at the deepest level and has come through knowing exactly who they are. Let me speak directly to the part of you that is still carrying fatigue, because some of you absorbed everything in this message, felt it land, and then felt the exhaustion sitting right underneath that landing, that deep, bone-level tiredness that comes from having been in a sustained, invisible war for longer than you should have had to carry it alone. That is the kind of depletion that does not resolve with a good night of rest. It is the fatigue of a person who has been strong in public while privately navigating something enormous and largely unseen. That exhaustion is real, and it is legitimate. What you have been carrying has been genuinely heavy. The multi-level nature of what came against you, the social weight of it, the material disruption of it, and the spiritual dimension pressing on your energy from angles you could not always see, produced a real and measurable cost. Honoring that cost is not weakness, it is honesty. The season that produced the exhaustion is not the season you are walking into. You are at a threshold now, and the threshold does not require a full tank on the way through. It requires one step from where you are, with what you have, in the direction of the thing you came here to do. The outworldly force that stepped in on your behalf is not finished with you. It did not intervene at the most critical moment of your life, so you could survive quietly into the background. It intervened because the work ahead of you matters, because what has to come through you, the love, the truth, the healing, the leadership, whatever your specific form of it is, the world is actively waiting for it, not in a passive way, in the way that a field is waiting for rain, receptive, ready and primed for exactly what you carry. So you take one step, then another, and as you move, you will find that the vitality native to you, the aliveness that was buried under the weight of everything that came against you, begins to return, not all at once, but consistently, because it was never destroyed. It was held in trust, waiting for this exact moment, waiting for you to understand enough to stop protecting yourself by staying small, and start protecting yourself by standing fully up. Your power is not for you alone. Your survival is not for your benefit alone. The testimony of what you walked through and what walked you out of it is medicine. It is the specific, irreplaceable, first-hand kind of medicine that only someone who has lived the story can offer. You can offer it because you were there, and someone who is right now in the middle of their own impossible chapter, someone who cannot feel the protection coming and cannot sense the intervention on its way, needs to encounter your life as evidence that coming through is possible. That is why your life was worth protecting at the level it was protected. Your survival was always meant to be more than personal. It was always meant to be a declaration, a living and breathing demonstration that certain people cannot be taken out, no matter how organized, no matter how resourced, no matter how dark the force assembled against them, because they are backed by something that operates above every level of darkness that exists. There are people who cannot understand why you are still alive. Feel how differently that lands right now. Same words, completely different weight, because now you have the full picture. You know what was behind the campaign, what came against you, and from what dimension it was being directed. You know what stepped in and why. You know what the intervention cost the people who ran the operation. You know what it built in you, and you know what you are walking into from here. The people who cannot explain your survival cannot explain it, because the protection on your life does not operate within any framework they have access to. Their entire model of power, the dark, greed-driven, entity-fueled model they built their operation on, has no category for a divine force that enters from outside the dimension of their influence. Your survival is not just something they could not prevent. It is something they cannot explain, and the fact that they cannot explain it is itself part of the judgment. Every move made against you in the dark is recorded. Every scheme, every attempt on your peace, your health, your relationships, your purpose, and your sanity, every door that was closed on you from behind a smiling face, every opportunity that was quietly sabotaged, every moment of your beauty that someone tried to poison, all of it is held by something that does not forget and does not allow imbalance to stand forever. The response to all of it is already in motion. You do not have to pursue it, watch for it, or carry any emotional investment in their outcome. The same force that stepped in to protect your life is handling the accounting with a precision no human strategy could replicate. Your freedom is that you do not have to be involved in any of that. Your only job is to go fully into what you came here to do. You have an assignment. You have a calling. You have something to pour out into this world that only you can deliver in the way you deliver it, shaped by what you carry, deepened by what you survived, and given authority by what you personally witnessed the divine do on your behalf. That combination exists nowhere else. It is yours alone. The people who wanted you buried built the testimony they were trying to prevent. The people who tried to erase your influence created the depth that makes your influence impossible to ignore. The darkness that came for you in all its organization, all its resourcefulness, all its ancient and entity-driven fury, produced the most powerful version of you. They wanted you in a grave. Instead, they built your throne. So go sit in it, move from it, live from it, with every ounce of the power that was placed in you before you ever arrived in this world. Let your light be as large and as loud and as unapologetically present as it was always designed to be, not for the people watching, not to prove something to the people who came against you, but for the world that is waiting, for the assignment that is ready, and for the version of you that walked through the fire and came out the other side, really knowing what you are and what backs you. The outworldly force did not step in on your behalf so you could play it safe. It stepped in because the world needs what you carry, so carry it all the way without apology, without compression, without looking back at anything that tried to stop you. Chosen one, your season is not approaching, it is here right now, and it starts with the very next step you take.